So, hello, this is Truth You Can Wake Up To. I'm Samuel William, and it's the 5th of January 2012. So I trust everybody had a good New Year's, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, the beginning of the year. Or is it? It's always this time of year that I get slightly confused and slightly miffed about all the people, the masses, counting down 10, 9, 8, etc. 3, 2, 1. Yay! It's the new year! Except it isn't. It's actually exactly 1 week after the new year. I'm sure a lot of people out there probably know this already. But the new year is on Christmas Day. So what? What's he talking about? The beginning of the new solar cycle, which is how any rational person could measure the solar cycle, is when the sun starts its journey back up to its highest point again, after being at its lowest point. You could think it's quite arbitrary. You could choose any day of the year and celebrate that as the new year. Yes, you could, but you'd generally look for some kind of characteristic mark within the solar cycle to worship or to celebrate, indeed. And of course, during the solar cycle, we have 2 solstices, when the sun is at its highest point and also at its lowest point. Those are on the 21st of June and the 21st of December in the Northern Hemisphere. We also have the equinoxes, when the day is of equal length with the night, and that's the spring and the autumn equinoxes. So any of those points would be okay to celebrate the new year if you decided to, but it just so happens that based upon the way that humanity has developed, we choose when the sun starts coming back from its lowest point, which is fair enough. In fact, it's the birth of a son, the birth of the Son of God. Now, quite enlightening, and you don't really want to talk to very strong Christians about this sort of stuff because they get a very kind of confused and worried look on their face, and then they decide never to speak to you ever again because you are the devil. But of course, the Son of God, most people will say, is Jesus, who died for 3 days and then was resurrected, afterwards reborn. Well, of course, on the 21st of December, the sun gets to its lowest point in the sky. It then stays at its lowest point for 3 days, and then on the 4th day, it is reborn. The Son of God is reborn after it died for 3 days. It's called Astro-Theology, not to be confused with astrology. It's nothing really to do with that. In fact, on the day of Christmas Day, on this special day when the Son of God is born, the first thing you get as night draws in on Christmas Eve is you get Orion's belt, those 3 stars in a line coming up from the horizon at right angles with the horizon, one at a time. Ding, ding, ding. Orion's belt rises from the horizon. After that has drifted up into the sky, you then get the brightest star in the sky, called Sirius, sometimes known as the morning star. And that starts to make its journey. And so far in the sky, you have 3 stars following another star, or 3 wise men following a star. Now, they're going in a line towards that. So as Sirius goes up into the sky, what follows it? Well, the constellation of Virgo, the Virgin. So you've got 3 wise men following a star to a virgin, and then what comes up as the constellation of Virgo goes up into the sky? The sun. And it's the beginning of the new day and the new year. Sorry, I said that really loudly because I wanted to get it through. The new year starts on the 25th of December. So it's just slightly odd that people celebrate it a week afterwards. Of course, if you've ever met a Freemason, which sometimes you never know if you have or not, but some people aren't worried about telling you they're a Freemason. In fact, you can see them reading Freemasons magazine, which apparently is a great read. Not. But it is a good place to buy one of those very large suitcases that you see them carrying around all over the place. If you ever get a chance to go to London, maybe you live in London, that'd be good. You should definitely visit Freemasons Hall, which is a really scary place. It's you've got a Holborn tube station, which is on a big main road called Kingsway, and that leads down to Aldwych at the bottom, where you've got the London School of Economics. And sort of parallel with that road, if you're walking down towards Aldwych, there's a right-hand turn called Great Queen Street. And that leads sort of through towards Covent Garden, and it's got the theatre district there. And if you walk down Great Queen Street, coming up on your left, you'll start to see a very large building with lots of very strange symbols on the side. A lot of them are of the sun, and a lot of them are of that Freemasonic symbol with the sort of set square and the compass. In fact, that entire building, which is called Freemasons Hall, is its floor plan, and you can look this up on Google Earth, or just Google Maps, I do believe. Even from the satellite view you can see it. It's in the shape of the set square and the compass. The whole floor plan of that building. And it's got lots and lots of strange imagery on it. Some really nice windows. Right at the front, a very large tower with some kind of Hebrew writing on it. And just lots of images of the sun. Of course, I've never been a Freemason. I would not want to go into that place. It looks really, really scary. And in fact, they have quite a few people on the door to make sure the right kind of people come in. I don't think they'd really let you in if you looked like you had an IQ above 100. I'm gonna get killed now by Freemasons. You should visit it for at least look at it from the outside. It is a scary, scary building. Did I mention I've never been a Freemason? I think I did. I wanted to say that again. But you would have met some. Some of them are quite open about it, and you can talk to them. And they're pretty guarded about what they do in there, of course. It's all very secretive. Most people will think that the Freemasons do a lot of good work for charity, and that's why they're hanging around. Yeah, that's why all of those guys, go to that place and take off the trousers or whatever, put different kinds of metal on their skin, and expose one arm and one leg, and take their shoes off, and do all these very strange rituals. It's because they like to do a lot of good work for charity. Sorry, I'm gonna have to pull up my little plastic chair again. Sit down on a little plastic chair. Tell me that one again. Tell me the story, teacher. But anyway, the overriding principle is that they worship the sun. In actual fact, when I've ever have been able to have a decent conversation with somebody who's a Freemason, they don't really tell me much, but they will agree to stuff if you get it right. And I can remember saying to one of them, "So, you worship the Luciferian Doctrine?" And he said, just gave a bit of a nod. Yeah, he did. They do. The Luciferian Doctrine. Now, of course, Lucifer, that sounds a little bit scary to a lot of people because it sounds like the devil. Well, Lucifer was not actually the devil. It was the sort of devil's servant, if you like. In the biblical stories, Lucifer was in fact the snake in the Adam and Eve story. And that's one of the things that Freemasons learn, is that when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden and the snake came along, he wanted them to eat from the tree of knowledge. Eat the apple from the tree of knowledge. Do you know why? Because God had trapped Adam and Eve, and therefore humanity, in an intellectual prison. And Lucifer wanted them to eat from the tree of knowledge to then have knowledge, and then they themselves could become gods. That is essentially the backbone of the Luciferian doctrine. But essentially, Lucifer is light. It is the sun. In fact, if you're a bit of a geek like me, you would have watched Star Wars. And in Star Wars, they're sort of hinting at this sort of stuff, because he's called Luke. He's called Luke Skywalker. Now, Horus, the old god of the sun, he was known as the Skywalker. Why? Because he used to walk across the sky in increments. In fact, 12 increments across the sky to make up the day. And then after he'd finished his walk, he'd go beneath the horizon, and of course then there'd be the dark side. And if you're if you're in an ancient civilization, the dark side, pretty scary really, because at night time things come in the night. You can't see properly, it's very cold, you might get attacked by some kind of nocturnal animal with large teeth. It's a very scary thing. And then the sun, again, or Horus, was born from the horizon, and that's what horizon means, Horus rising. And Horus has the same Horus, has actually the same letters as ours. So Horus walks across the sky, as does Luke, or Luca, or Lucifer, skywalks, doing battle with the dark side. But the most fundamental idea of this is that worship of the sun is a very ancient thing, but it's also quite a modern thing, because the Freemasons still do it. Now, if you talk to any Freemason about, isn't it funny that most people celebrate the New Year a week late from the real New Year, they'll agree with you. They'll think, but they'll give you that look of, damn, he knows. Because that's why people join Freemasonry, is because in Freemasonry you learn that you're one of the special ones. There's a lot of people out there that don't really understand much. In fact, they do say that Freemasons are told that 98% of the population are essentially unconscious. And by learning the ancient wisdom, they become conscious of what they really are, and are therefore essentially just better than everybody else. And because they're better, they deserve special treatment. And generally, special treatment comes in the way of insider knowledge within business, and therefore much more success, which is why you'll find that a lot of business people will join the Freemasons because they want to succeed. Well, how do they succeed? Well, because all of those people have little private chats. In fact, if you go in London, or you could just look it up on Google Maps. Oh! I've just remembered something. A few episodes ago, I was talking about the Rothschild building in the centre of the city of London, and I said, look it up on Google Earth, and I wouldn't imagine that that building is there. And what do you know? I did it the other day. I downloaded the new version of Google Maps with the special Earth function, and you go into the City of London, they've got all the 3D models of all the buildings there. They've even got the Shard, that big sort of pointy building that's still a work in progress. They've got it as a work in progress, so that's how much it's updated. But where's the Rothschild building? It's not there. Nothing. Almost as if there's a hole in the ground there. Which is interesting. But I imagine there probably is a hole in the ground there, to be honest. I need to do more research on this, but I've come across, just in the last sort of few months, all these ideas about deep underground military bases called DUMBs, D-U-M-B, and apparently there's 3 per state in America, but I don't want to talk too much about it because I still need to do a lot of research on that. But they're definitely there in America. People have worked on them. People have whistleblowed about these very high-speed rail networks that connect them. And, the entrances are there, these huge things that just sort of go into this big pit in the ground. Look it up. Crazy. Mind-blowing. But you've got to imagine that those sort of things are in England as well. You have to imagine that they would be. Continuity of government and all of this kind of stuff. They need it. Now, we certainly do have underground bunkers in London. You can actually visit Winston Churchill's Cabinet War Rooms, which is the war bunker that's beneath the Foreign Office on Whitehall, which is Foreign Office is the building just on one side of Downing Street. Now, Winston Churchill had his war bunker under there. It's quite far under the ground, and it's since that was there in the 1940s, apparently, that there has been development into lots more secret tunnelling. Now, the reason I know a lot about this is because I've got a friend who is an archaeologist, or at least studying archaeology at a sort of higher than degree level. And she was doing some archaeology around the Westminster area, and she managed to be shown a map of the areas that they were allowed to look in. And there was a big shaded out area. And the big shaded out area was where the secret tunnels are, which run from every single government building on Whitehall to the Houses of Parliament, so that the MPs and all the people in government can securely go between the two without having to come up to pavement level. I mean, perish the thought that our leaders would have to walk amongst the people, maybe because they'll be scared of being attacked. And I think it was Bill Hicks who was talking about the Pope having sort of 6 inches of bulletproof plexiglass. Oh, there's faith in action. Well, there's leadership in action, isn't they? Too scared to even walk down the street to where they work. So they have a secure tunnel 5 stories beneath the ground. So there's an underground network. Some may call it a criminal underground network, and that'd be pretty right. Of course, all sorts of things going on in politics at the moment. The beginning of this new year has been just mind-blowingly obvious in the manipulation of people. I wanted to talk about predictive programming, because once you realise that the media, both newspapers and news programs and all that kind of stuff, are manipulated, controlled, especially since we've started the wars in 2001. Once you realise that, and it sets in, and you have a kind of, it has a face of reality on it, you realise, oh, actually, yes, what they're telling me is essentially supposed to change my opinion. Not anything to do with free open press, which is what they always tell you, but they tell you it's free and open to manipulate your opinion, to believe that it's free and open. And actually, more or less nowadays, whatever they tell you, you can be pretty sure that something around the opposite is true. I'm not trying to be confusing, but they are. They are definitely trying to be confusing. But predictive programming. Now, there's not a Wikipedia article on this, but you can find lots of stuff on the internet about predictive programming. In fact, the first time I came across it was from listening to Alan Watt on Cutting Through the Matrix. And if you haven't heard that, well, presumably, actually, you have heard that, because that's how you found mine, because I put it in the link. But I think Alan is a fantastic individual and well worth listening to. Bloody scary, though, however, really scary listening to Alan. But he really does send a kind of icicle of reality through your everyday life. That's where I came across predictive programming. Now, it sounds a bit weird, and it's to do with programming. So when you watch something, you come away with some kind of idea that you didn't have before. Now, we have all been subjected to predictive programming for our entire lives. Started off with children's programs, carried on to sort of adolescent programs, into teen, into early 20s, and then down through just about everything we watch. Now, just take this scenario. You're walking down the street and you hear an explosion from somewhere. You see some smoke off down the road somewhere, and you feel a bit scared. Next thing you know, a soldier is walking towards you. He's got a gun. Now, he points the gun at you, and he says, "Spread 'em." Now, what are you going to do? Well, you know what you're going to do. You're going to find a wall, and you're going to stand face to the wall, and you're going to spread your legs, and you're going to spread your arms, and you're going to expect to be searched. You've become submissive, completely and utterly. Now, we all know what to do in that situation, which is to spread them, but the only place we've ever come across that is by watching it on television. That's predictive programming. Another really interesting one is the sort of Mexican standoff, or rather just the standoff between two people that have weapons. We see this on the television all the time. All the time. So you've got a good guy and a bad guy, and they both got guns. And they point the guns at each other, and nobody shoots. Sort of a standoff. And they're just looking at each other. Who's going to shoot? Are you going to shoot me? Are you going to shoot me? Nobody really knows. And it normally ends up in somebody putting the gun down and the other person putting the gun down. And it all ends nicely. Now, that's the programming. In a real-life situation, and there was a thought for a second that guns were going to be involved and somebody's going to get shot, the person who's going... The baddie in this situation is going to just shoot you. Now, of course, the real situation that we might come across, and this has come up in the news recently because of they're talking about gun control laws and all this kind of stuff, is that what that predictive programming does to you is breed in hesitation, so that if you've got a gun and there's a soldier or some kind of militarized policeman pointing a gun at you, you are not going to fire. You're going to hesitate. He is then going to fire because you've got a gun and you're pointing it at him. So when would this ever be used? Well, of course, we don't really have guns in this country, in the United Kingdom. We don't. Some people do. You know, people go hunting and all that kind of stuff. Some people, I'm sure, will have guns to protect themselves in their house. But generally, people don't have guns. But all the same sort of legislation that's going on in America at the moment about gun control is now happening in the United Kingdom. Because we had some guy shoot his family, then shoot himself, and there was a lot of stuff in the press about this is how many guns he had, and how did he have a license, if, you know, people were saying that he was a bit crazy, and all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it was saying, we don't need any changes to gun control laws. Well, it turns out, actually, just 2 weeks before this event, where this guy shot some people, there was a parliamentary review on gun control and the laws. And in the parliamentary review, he said they're very confusing and they're a mess and they need to be sorted out. And then, of course, we had this shooting. And then in the press, they were saying, we don't really need a review on gun control. Oh, hello, you've already had one. And now, of course, they're saying, oh, actually, we do need a change in the law. So, and for those of you that haven't sort of taken the logic to the next extent, of course what I'm talking about is why they are preparing us for some kind of militarized police event. They're teaching us about how to behave when a soldier asks to search us. They're teaching us about how not to fire a gun if we have one. And they're also at the same time trying to make sure that nobody has a gun in the first place. And I suppose the question should be, why? Why are these things happening? Which is an interesting question. That's all I've got for today. I hope to be back, if not tomorrow, then the day after. But I have been Samuel William, and this has been Truth You Can Wake Up To.